Hello everyone, it's Dr. Watkins again, and we are continuing to lay the groundwork for our upcoming sales presentation we will be giving online. And in the first part of my lecture, I covered a number of general ideas, and we got rather specific about particular appeals we should be making when it comes to selling, and how we sell a product or a service has everything to do with how we craft the message. What we're going to do now is take a more in-depth look for a particular approach that we can use based off of what we would call contemporary studies and appeals. A lot of what we do in public speaking or speech communications, communication studies, we like to say from a broader perspective, has a lot of overlay with psychology. And so that's the reason, as we go through and study a number of concepts about speech communications, we have a lot of overlay and overflow, you might say, with what you would be studying or have studied in psychology class. If you've already taken psychology class, or perhaps you're studying psychology now, the name of Abraham Maslow should probably mean something to you. In fact, Maslow is particularly well known for his famous hierarchy of needs, and this is included in our book on page 359. Taking a look at this particular pyramid, what we see are what Maslow calls particular kinds of needs. Now, the way this works, and you'll notice right here on the lower level, we have physiological. The lower we are on this pyramid, the greater the need is. So, for example, if we were to make a sales appeal on the basis of securing food and air, we all need food and we all need air in order to live. And so that's a very basic kind of approach where the physiological needs very much come into play. Now, as we move up on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we see safety, and so many different sales approaches, appeals, and even in the general framework of persuasion, the appeals to safety are particularly prevalent. And a lot of that has to do with the day and age in which we live. In fact, if we emphasize the crime rate and we start talking about the number of people who are susceptible or who place themselves in vulnerable positions, we will find easily that a lot of people will be persuaded to move over into, for example, buying some kind of a home security system. And we're going to be taking a look at that in just a moment. Love and belonging, all of us want to be loved. Of course, there are different kinds of love. The word love, as we use it in English, is applied to so many different kinds of love. In fact, we overuse the word love to apply to so many situations. A number of other languages use different words to refer to different types of love. And when we get higher up on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we move to esteem factors, and then for Maslow, the self-actualization is the highest level. And as you continue to study these hierarchy of needs, you will see that this is an area to which a lot of persuasive appeals ultimately aspire, hopefully to move audience members. We were talking about home security systems a few minutes ago, and I love to use home security systems as a good case in point, because when it comes to making sales appeals, the need for security is one that does persuade a lot of audiences. Now remember, as we are looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that this level of safety is very close to physiological, and the lower we are on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the greater the need. So if you're trying to persuade an audience to think as you are or to buy a particular product, by using safety appeals, you have a great chance of being able to move your audience. Right now, I'm going to play a commercial from Brink's home security system, and I love to play this particular commercial because in many respects it brings home the whole notion of looking at why we buy what we buy, and also that we have this overriding need for security. So take a look and see what you think.
It's about time she got home. I'm coming. Did you get your key?
Mom?
You're home. When did you get... Hello.
This is Tom from Brink's Home Security.
Are you okay?
Someone just tried to break in.
I'm sending help right now.
Thank you so much.
Call 1-800-910-3624 now to install Brink's Home Security for just $99. Brink's sensors and detectors can alert you when trouble strikes. And the Brink's keypad is linked to award-winning monitoring centers where professionals respond quickly 24 hours a day. Call now to get the $99 installation plus a second keypad installed free. That's a $135 value. And you could save up to 20% on your homeowner's insurance. Call 1-800-910-3624 now and get the system installed for just $99. Brink's Home Security. Rapid response and peace of mind for your home or business. Call now.
Now realize that I placed that in full screen so you could not see the entire presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to make it a little bit smaller so that you can see the presentation a little bit better. And I will also make this available to you as a separate file, so that way you can see it and you can get all the particulars for this presentation. And I think that's what I'll do. I'll make this file available to you. But really the bottom line is that it is successful because people really do have this overriding need to have a feeling of security. So that's the reason the sale of home security systems is working pretty well for a lot of sales representatives, and perhaps you'll notice that's the reason why there are many different kinds of home security systems that can be purchased. Now I get a little bit more on the local level. Some of you may be aware that Central Carolina Technical College has received approval for constructing an advanced manufacturing training center, and those of us from this area may be familiar with this particular facility that you see in the slide. This used to at one time be Walmart on Broad Street in Sumter, and Central Carolina is going to be taking this building that later on was Steve and Barry's. I think it was a sporting goods store, but it's going to be transformed into an advanced manufacturing training center, and that is going to be specifically to train workers in what we call mechatronics for working with the new Continental Tire plant that is coming to this particular area around Sumter. What I'm going to do now is play a clip. Now this one does come within your view, and I want you to take a look at how the college is promoting a mechatronics program. And while this particular clip was done before the idea of this manufacturing center was ever thought of, you can see again what kinds of appeals are being made. Let's take a look and see what we notice.
Train for tomorrow's jobs today at Central Carolina Technical College. If you like a challenge and get satisfaction from finding solutions, then mechatronics may be for you. Mechatronics is an emerging career field that involves the design, manufacture, and maintenance of intelligent electromechanical products and devices. Central Carolina is the only place in our area teaching these skills. Visit us online to learn more about mechatronics and why Central Carolina is college for you.
Okay, so as we continue to think about the different kinds of appeals that are made, you can see that this particular promo from Central Carolina is really selling people on the idea that mechatronics is the up-and-coming technology, and that by learning these skills you'll position yourself even more for some pretty good jobs in the future. And it's interesting that this promo was made before Continental Tire announced its plans to come into the area. What I'm wanting us to do is to just really start to think more critically about the kinds of appeals that are made. How are we persuaded to do what we do and what we don't do? Why don't we return the favor in many cases for giving a donation? Here is a picture of a sweet child. Think about how many different promos, commercials, spots use children to try to move us to give or to support a particular cause. And to give is not always meaning that we're writing a check or making a credit card pledge. It has to do with supporting an effort. And in many cases, a lot of that is giving moral support in addition to financial support. Another kind of system that I want you to become very aware of is what we call the elaboration likelihood model. And again, what we're looking at on page 361 is this whole notion that whenever we start talking about advertising and making persuasive appeals, that for some of us, we take in the information pretty directly. In other words, when we look at the elaboration likelihood model, it's called central processing. It's where we pay very close attention to all of the details. But in many situations, we respond through what we call peripheral reasoning. I know a lot of us are very familiar with peripheral vision. That's the side vision, as opposed to being able to look directly. If we take a look at a print ad just like this one for Tide, as we look at it, I wonder how many of us would say, well, I pay really close attention to all the words that are in the ad. If that's the case, you probably are pulling more into central processing according to the elaboration likelihood model. But a lot of people just simply fan through or rush through advertisements. And Nike, for example, knows that people are very much on the go, and there's this whole notion that if we can at least appeal to people from a peripheral standpoint, we can plant the so-called seed. Now this ad has a font that is very small, but if you were able to look at it up close, you would see that it has a lot of information, and somebody who would take the time to read this information has a greater likelihood to buy into the particular argument that is, in this case, appealing to a financial need. We also are very concerned with speaker credibility. How likely can we believe you whenever you make your sales appeal? That's the reason a lot of advertisements dealing with medical products get people who are doctors or working in the medical field. And I know we're going to talk about some ethical issues, but they actually do dress up people, unfortunately, you might say, to play the roles of doctors and nurses and other healthcare professionals. Also, I want you to pay close attention to this whole notion of speaker similarity that is mentioned on page 363 in our textbook. If we do respond to a particular appeal, many of the studies show that we do so because we can identify with the particular speaker. And a lot of people say, for example, Dr. Phil would be an example of that, because a lot of people could identify with his situations as opposed to maybe, let's just say, someone who is just sharing reviews from some kind of a study. We're going to be taking a look at more of these issues, but we're continuing to lay the groundwork, and I look forward to getting your insights on the discussion board.